Recently, there's been a surge in discussions surrounding Vivziepop and her art style. There were some videos discussing this topic, but they were made 4 to 5 years ago. I've made many videos discussing Vivzie's shows from the oldest to her newest, but one aspect I haven't touched on yet is her art style. So I think now is a good time to discuss this topic in a positive manner and enable some discussion on the subject. In this video I'll analyse Vivzie's art style, highlight some criticisms, and then give some potential ideas on how they can be resolved. So to start things off, for anyone not aware who Vivziepop is, I'll give a brief introduction. Vivziepop, also known as Vivian Medrano, is an American artist, animator, and YouTuber. She has 8.5 million YouTube subscribers and is most well known for being the creator of 3 online web series, being Has-Been Hotel, Helva Boss, and Zoophobia. The first thing you'll notice about Vivzie's work is her distinct style. Vivzie's art has allowed her to cultivate a huge audience over the years. However, at the same time, her art has received heavy criticism for a variety of reasons. In the next section, I'll point out some main traits of Vivzie's art. The first thing you'll notice about Vivzie's art is her colour palettes. Viv loves to use a variety of saturated colours with varying hues. The amount will depend on which project of hers you're talking about though. If we take a look at her 2015 Allison project, the main colours are pink, red, and a touch of blue. In Has-Been Hotel, the main colours are red, yellow, white, and pink, while in Zoophobia, nearly every colour is used. Similarly to the last point, Viv's character designs will change depending on the project. In Has-Been Hotel, the show takes place in hell, with the majority of the cast being sinners. In Viv's version of hell, when a human dies and goes to hell, their appearance will reflect what they look like in life and how they died. As a result, the vast majority of the cast end up resembling creatures or other objects. In Helva Boss, most of the cast are hellborn demons. The appearance of a demon is determined by several factors, such as the ring they were born in, if they're mixed species, and their level in the hell hierarchy. The main protagonist, Blitz, is an imp, but stands out from the rest because of the unique scarring on his body, which appear as white spots. Stolas, another important character, is Nars Goetia, which are demons which resemble bird-like creatures. So, in Helva Boss, the characters are all designed based on several factors. For another example, we have Zoophobia. Zoophobia is set in a different universe to Helva and Has-Been, and therefore doesn't have the same world building or lore to define the character designs. As a result, there is a wide variety of characters with differing appearances. The main factor in Zoophobia is that the cast are anthropomorphic characters. As a result, the majority resemble wolves, cats, and various other creatures. These concepts extend to Viv's other projects like Allison and The Secret Heart of Kiki. Each project has its own set of rules, with the characters ranging from human-like to anthropomorphic to even resembling monsters. At a glance, it's easy to take a look at any of these projects and draw up the similarities between them, and this is one of the main reasons that Vivzie has a recognisable style. Linked in with the last 2 points, Viv is well known for her patterns and backgrounds. Many of her characters are adorned with intricate patterns and designs, which adds depth and personality to them. In Viv's backgrounds, we can see the same sort of design elements with the colour palettes. They'll have a variety of colours based on the theme and are filled with details, references, and secrets. This ties in with the lighting. Viv makes heavy use of advanced lighting techniques across all of her projects. One example being in Helva Boss. In Season 2, Episode 3, we can see this on full display. During the scenes with Krim, the lighting is used to set the mood and highlight the characters. We can see this clearly with the reflective yellow eyes of the imps, the green fire in the background, and the shadows across the walls. So, after going through the main traits of Vivzie's art style, we can see some underlining elements that carry between her projects. Although many of these concepts improve her pieces, they sometimes work to the opposite effect. In the next section, I'm going to point out some of the most commonly cited criticisms of Viv's work. To start things off, we have the colour palettes. As mentioned previously, Viv's projects typically have a range of colours depending on the themes. This is great because it creates a cohesive atmosphere. However, it creates issues since some colours feel a bit overused. In Has-Been Hotel, since most of the main cast uses the same shades of reds, pinks, and whites, they can appear too similar, and as a result, the characters lose some individuality. In Zoophobia, there's an opposite issue, where the characters have such bright and varying designs, to the point where it's difficult to dot where your eyes should be looking, and it actually makes the characters stick out less. As mentioned a bit earlier, Helva Boss is probably the best example of colour palettes being used well. The main cast's colours consist of red, white, and black. As a result, when they visit various different rings, such as the green greed ring or the pink sloth ring, they contrast really well against the background. In Has-Been Hotel, the Pride Ring's main colour scheme is red, black, and pink, which is also the same colour scheme that the main cast use. As a result, they almost blend into the background at points, and it can be hard for the viewer to follow along. This issue was somewhat looked at for the full release of the show, where the main cast received redesigns, as they have some new design elements, such as white lapels on Alistair to contrast against his red suit. Although overall, the issue of colour balancing still remains. Personally, I think the main way this can be addressed is if the cast wears various different outfits. As the trailer shows, we see some of the characters in different clothes depending on the scene. So, if the characters wear a variety of clothing that contrast against the backgrounds and the other cast members, it'll help improve the visual clarity. Since season 1 has already been made, the main cast can't have their designs altered, so I think for future seasons it could be a good idea if they undergo some changes. Perhaps they'll have different clothes, scars from battle, or any number of changes that will help improve the colour palette and make things more unique. Vivzie's character designs are probably the most criticised part of her art style. There's a lot to go through. So the first thing is that the fact that many of her characters feature slim proportions. There's a popular image that's floated around for several years which shows the main cast of Has Been Hotel. In the image we can see how similar the body types are for the characters. The one exception is Vivzie, however it's unsure if she'll be a main cast member in the final show. The fact remains that many of Viv's characters feature skinny proportions, and this is something you'll see discussed regularly. So how can this issue be resolved? Well, it technically already has. In both Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss, Viv has introduced new characters with unique body types. In Has Been Hotel we have Adam, the main antagonist, who is quite large. We also have the introduction of characters like Asmodeus and Mammon in Hell of a Boss, who are also quite unique, with Asmodeus being broad and well built, while Mammon is round and chubby. It's also worth noting that there's a variety of background characters in both shows which feature diverse appearances. If people have the criticism that Vivzie's main casts are normally skinny, that's completely valid. However, it's common for people to say that Viv can't draw fat people, and that's completely untrue. Like I pointed out, she does have a ton of variety in her designs. You just have to look beyond the main casts to see them. The only way this criticism can be remedied is if additional characters are added to the main cast. However, I feel like that might jeopardize the vision of the shows, especially since the main casts are already quite crowded already. The next thing is character faces and expressions. Many of Viv's characters feature exaggerated faces and smiles. Similarly to the last 2 points, it can lead to some of the characters appearing too similar. This is most visible in Has Been Hotel. Characters like Alistair, Lucifer, Angel Dust, Valentino and Vox all feature the same wide grin and evil appearance. The best way to resolve this is just to add more variety to the character expressions. We'd have to see when the full show comes out whether or not this criticism is resolved. One of Viv's favourite outfits to give characters is a suit and bow tie. On its own this isn't a bad concept, however in Has Been Hotel once again the idea is overused. If we take a look at the designs of Lucifer, Vox and Alistair, all three feature the same bow tie and suit. This combines with the other issues since they feature wide grins and skinny proportions. This is why some people label Viv's characters as Tumblr sexy men. For those who are unaware, Tumblr sexy men are a set of characters that were, as the name suggests, sexualized and popularized on Tumblr. They all feature the same sort of design elements, being an evil grin, skinny proportions, a suit and tie, and an evil backstory. Vivzie has said several times in the past that she didn't design these characters to specifically be Tumblr sexy men. She said that she just likes those design elements. So it's up to your interpretation, but it's clear to see why the comparison exists, and it'll most likely continue into the future. This one, like the others, can be remedied by just introducing a variety of outfits. If the cast wore something other than a suit and bow tie, it'll stop them appearing so similar. Moving to the next group of criticisms, we'll start off with anatomy. Just like with the slim proportions point, many of Viv's characters feature complex anatomy. As a result, sometimes inconsistencies appear. You'd see this across many of her projects, but sometimes the characters are drawn with widely varying arm sizes, shoulders, and boob sizes. The complex designs can also hinder the visual clarity in Viv's works. Since many of the characters feature complex designs, it can be difficult to pay attention to specific elements. This combines with the complex backgrounds to where it's hard to pay attention to what's going on. In Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel, so much happens on screen with so many complex characters to the point where the viewer can feel overwhelmed. As a result, you may have to rewatch the content several times to catch everything you missed, otherwise you'll be confused. The composition of shots and backgrounds vary in quality. I've pointed this out several times in my reviews of the Hell of a Boss episodes, but sometimes background objects appear too big or too small. This applies to the characters as well, where they'll stand out from the backdrop and it takes you out of the action. Since the composition is a bit messy, it can be hard to decipher the height of characters, objects and buildings. So how can these issues surrounding anatomy, complexity and backgrounds get sorted? Well, some of the issues are caused because Viv has a team working for her. In Hell of a Boss in particular, during certain scenes, you can visibly tell it was made by another member of the team. It's basically a weird situation where some scenes will be spot on, while in others you can tell that it's someone trying to imitate Viv's style. In the Has Been Hotel trailer, it looks less complex compared to the pilot, so there's a chance that this criticism was fixed. In regards to Hell of a Boss, it's on an episode by episode basis. In recent Hell of a Boss episodes, the team has had additional help from the same animation team that worked on Has Been Hotel. This has helped make the animation more consistent with less errors, whereas in earlier episodes of season 2, the animation was a bit of a dice roll in terms of quality. Since the recent episodes have been quite consistent animation wise, I reckon the team has found their footing in terms of production quality and future episodes will continue to look spot on. As I've explained throughout the video, Vivzie has a wonderful style and it's apparent why her art and shows are so incredibly incredibly popular. On the other hand, there are a number of criticisms that definitely need looked at. I've made hundreds of hours worth of content on Viv's projects, and I've seen how her style has improved over time. Although many of these design elements have stayed, if you compare the 2019 Has-Been Hotel pilot to a 2023 Hell of a Boss episode, there's a night and day difference. The character designs, the lighting, and the backgrounds have all been improved. Although some of the new Has-Been Hotel designs aren't as good as the originals in the pilot in my opinion, I have high hopes for the show and can't wait to see the final result in January. On the topic of Viv's designs, I do feel some of the hate is unwarranted. On sites like Twitter, people parrot the same sort of points over and over again. As I've pointed out in this video, there are many criticisms which are completely valid and worth pointing out. On the flip side, people drone on and on about these to the point where it's starting to get a bit frustrating. You can immediately tell who's actually watched her shows and who is jumping on the bandwagon for clout. I've seen people say Vivzie's art style is shit and her old animations on FNAF or Splatoon are doing a disservice to the source material, and I just completely disagree. It's a bit odd in my opinion to see people hold 10-year-old art accountable. People will say Vivzie can't draw for shit, and then the proof they include is an image from 2014. It's just bad faith and reiterates that these people are doing it to stir the pot. So yeah, that was a bit of an art analysis on Vivziepop's art. I've tried to make the video as balanced as possible so everyone can watch along and understand why there exists so much discussion on this topic. If you have any thoughts of your own or agree with my points, I'd love for you to leave them in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching.